Hi, this is Thomas with Classic Electric. I'm back again to teach you how to label an electrical panel. I get asked a lot, how do I label a panel? Or my panel isn't labeled really well. How can I relabel it? Would you do it for me? And I'm like, I could do it for you, but it's kind of expensive and it's actually really easy to show you how to do one. So I'm going to take time today and show you how to do it yourself, save you a bunch of money. So let's get started. I have three methods that I'm going to show you today that work well to be able to identify if your circuits are on. Now, in this case, I have lights on in this particular room. So if I wanted to find out which breaker was operating these lights in this room, all I'd have to do is click on each one of these breakers one at a time off until the light went off in this room. That would actually be pretty easy. I'd be like, oh, I flipped that off, lights went off, those are the lights in the room. That's actually pretty straightforward. Now, in the case of outlets, it's a little bit different because right now, if I flipped a bunch of breakers off, I can't tell if that outlet's on or off. So here's one way of doing it. I like these. These are outlet testers. You can buy them at all the big box stores. What's nice about these things is they're really lightweight. I can put them in my pocket. I can carry them around. They're not very heavy. So here's how you would do an outlet tester. You can plug it right into here. The lights are going to light up. It's going to tell me that there's power on. It has all of these different configurations on here. There's only one way to do it right and a whole bunch of ways to do it wrong. So depending on which lights light up, it will tell you whether it's wired correctly or not. You'll see home inspectors use these all the time when you go to buy a home. They'll plug these in all over and say, these are all working great except for this one way over in the corner. This particular one also has an added button on it. Not all of them do, but this is a GFCI tester. You can buy it with the button or without. The one without the button's cheaper. The one with the button's more expensive, but the one with the button allows you to do this. Now you can test your GFCIs. It's lit. You heard the button release on the GFCI. I reset it. It came back on. I know my GFCI is working. That's what the home inspector is doing. He's going around making sure all your GFCIs are working, and this is how they do it. So this is one way of determining if your power's on. Now that I've got the power on, I can come in here, and I happen to already know which circuit it is, so I can go right to it. And there it is. The lights went off, so I know that this particular outlet is on this circuit breaker. If I didn't, I'd be clicking every one of these until eventually I saw the lights go off, just like we did right there. So that's one way of identifying with an outlet tester. And these are about the non-button styles, $8, and I think the one that tests GFIs like this one here is 12 or 14, depending on where you purchase it. So that's one way of doing it. So I'm going to restore the power. Power is back on, and I know that that circuit in this particular application, which is circuit breaker number 16, which corresponds with 16 here, and it's also going to tell me that it's this particular garage outlet and some others. So just because it does this doesn't necessarily mean that the one next to it this way or the one down from there isn't also on it. So when this goes off, you should take this tester and go down to the next outlet and see if it's on. If it's not on, it's on with this, and you can add that. You may go down to the next one and find out that it's on a different circuit entirely. So you're going to test every one of your outlets in your house, and that's how you're going to determine which ones are on which circuits. Now, there is another way of doing this. I don't use this one all that often. This one actually makes noise. I can test outlets. It has all the same configurations that this one does, but this one makes noise. So the beauty to this is when I'm working by myself, if I'm trying to test something downstairs in the back 40 somewhere, I can plug this in. It makes a whole lot of noise, and I can flip the breakers until it goes off. And then I don't have to run back and forth each time to see if the lights are lit on this thing. I can just listen for the noise, and when the noise goes off, I know that particular outlet is off. So let me give you a demonstration. Obviously, that makes a lot of noise. So you can imagine if I'm a long ways from here and I want to not have to run in the house, this actually works out really well. I don't use it all that often because normally I'm close enough, but it is a nice thing to have. I think the orange one that we were playing with earlier, standard outlet tester, would get you out of trouble 90% of the time. I do have one additional one. For those of you who want to keep it simple, stupid, which is what I'm all about, but keep in mind I'm a professional electrician. But if for a homeowner, an actual area or a work light like this works really well. I know this seems kind of silly, but if you're only going to label the panel once, this is really all you need. Obviously, the light works. Obviously, that was the circuit breaker. You could go around all over the house just doing this, plugging it in, and this would more than get the job done. We could keep it simple. Let's go over a bunch of different types of styles of labels that they have in manufacturers' panels. I've got a bunch of them. I'd like to go over them with you. So this is one style that they give you with this panel when you purchase it new. You can take the sticker out, and then you can place it in here like so, and then you can write on them. This is one way of doing it. There is another way of doing it. You can buy these at the big box store. This is just a universal panel circuit directory. And the way they work is you will have a sticker on the back here. You will peel it off, stick it right to the door, and then take the card that you've written on, and then it slides right down into the plastic in here so that it sits inside like that. Let's talk about a couple of others. These are a couple of additional panel covers that I have left over from panel changes I've done so that I can demonstrate. So if you have a system like this where everything's written in and it's a little worn out, this would be a great place where you could use your universal circuit directory, place it right in here, fill out your card, slide your card in. This would be a good example to where you don't have to cross out and relabel, and it just gets kind of busy. You could just have a nice, clean, brand new one. You could reference number 1 here, number 2 here. This would work well. There's something I've always wanted to show somebody that this has come up a lot, is this style. This style here actually doesn't even have a sticker. This is so old school that these are actually painted on. So what are you going to do in this situation? Because like here, somebody's already written air conditioner on here. It's not going to do me any good to come in here. Whiteout does. I mean, everybody's like, let's use whiteout. I mean, it's not a bad idea. It just doesn't actually work. By the time you smear white on here and try to write on it, it just doesn't work. So what I like to do is address labels. Easy peel. I'm sure we've all seen these. So obviously I use these every day. I peel one of these out. As you can notice, it's pretty much the same size as the original one. Grab your knife. Now I've got a really nice brand new white sticker, and I can write on there without having all these scribbles. Or in this particular application, look how much stuff is written on here. If I change the breaker, or that isn't actually it, this is this one and that one's that one, everybody gets them out of order. Same thing. Now it looks like a professional did it. So this is how you can test your outlets and test your lighting. Pretty straightforward. You can also, we didn't mention, you could get on your cell phone, call your brother, cousin, mother, significant other, somebody on the other end who's standing in the house, and start flipping off circuit breakers. Turn all the lights on in the room, and then one at a time, turn one breaker off, turn another breaker off, and eventually it'll go, that's the one. Okay, what room are you in? I'm in the living room. And then they walk around, they go, and it's the hall bathroom lights, and it's the back bedroom. And especially if you have an older home, it seems like half the house is on one circuit. And then you can go through, and when they're talking to you on the cell phone in the house, you can start labeling what all it's doing. And then if you want to check the outlets, you can do the things that we talked about earlier to check all the outlets. So another thing that we need to consider also is when you're labeling these, we don't want to write Bob's bedroom. Why? Because Bob's not going to live here forever. Eventually the house is going to get sold, and I don't know which one is Bob's bedroom anymore. Same thing with the yellow bedroom. We might repaint the bedroom a different color, so it's not going to be yellow. So the bottom line is, what you're going to want to do is primary bedroom, master bedroom, bedrooms 1 and 2, the north bedroom versus the south bedroom, the downstairs bedroom, the upstairs bedroom. Another example would be like water heaters. If you got 2 water heaters, in some cases people do, the one on the left, the one on the right, the big one, the small one. Some kind of an idea that basically, if you bought the house tomorrow and you walked in, you'd have a good idea. This says range. Well, there's only one range. If there were 2 ranges, like in this particular home, it'd be upstairs and downstairs. So you're going to want to make sure that each individual space says something different than every other space in here. Like once upon a time, code, you could write lights and outlets, lights and outlets, lights and outlets. The problem was you never knew which lights and which outlets. So they don't allow you to do that anymore. Each breaker on here needs to say something different. If all your garage outlets were on one circuit, you could write garage outlets. But if only half of them on one wall were on one and one was on the other, you would have to write garage north wall, garage south wall, something to that effect. You could, on a worst case scenario, go to your actual outlet on the cover and write number one, and correspond it to the break. I probably wouldn't do that. They do that in commercial applications all the time. But in your garage, you could do that. If you had 3 or 4 circuits, you could number them. But you need to come up with some kind of an identification to where everything in here is uniquely its own breaker. There is another method you could also do. You could print out your own schedule, because on older homes, you start running out of space in some of these areas where there isn't enough room to write down, as in this application, the dining west outlet, the refrigerator, the north kitchen counter and pantry, breezeway, the lower outlet. There's just not enough room. So in a situation like that, obviously works out really well. So that's another opportunity. So as you can see, having a well-labeled panel for knowing what all is going on in your home is going to work out for lots of different reasons. Also, watch my generator video and you'll see why that becomes really important, because then when you go to hook up your generator during a power outage, it's nice to know exactly what's what where, so that you're not turning on things you don't want because you have a well-labeled panel. Hopefully that helped and took a bunch of the mystery out of how to label a panel. I get asked a lot, so I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. I'm Thomas with Classic Electric, and this is a wrap.